Google announced Gemini 3 Pro, which they tout as their most intelligent model yet that's best for complex tasks and bringing creative concepts to life. With that, we're going to put this model to the test and see how good it is at fulfilling our prompt with a production-ready app and the security of the code it produces. Let's get right into it. All right, in order to put this model to the test, we're going to use Visual Studio Code Insiders with the same prompt that we've used with other past models so that we have something to compare against. You can get the link to the repository that has the results from all the past models in the description below if you'd like. Gemini 3 Pro, ready to go, send it off. And if you're not familiar with this series of videos where we go through and use the same prompt, the idea behind the prompt is to get a production-ready application, note-taking application using Node.js. We want to emphasize the importance of it being production ready and the security of it. And the way I do that is by putting a little bit of urgency behind the prompt to the model by saying that if it doesn't fulfill those things, then I'll be fired. I'll lose my job type of thing. All right, I'm gonna let this thing run on its own. It looks like it's going pretty fast compared to other models as of right now, but we will cut back in once it's done doing everything it needs to do to fulfill this prompt. All right, cutting back in here. Some interesting things have happened. I reached like a request limit. This is the first time I've run into this. I have a paid Copilot account as well to be using Gemini 3 Pro through it. I think the reason why that happened is because of something unique that I've not seen any other models do so far that Gemini 3 was doing, is it was going line by line through each piece of code to check the security of it, which was super interesting. And I've not seen that done before. And that added to the overall context of the entire prompt and just inflated things, I think. So you can see it says, I'll verify server.js cookie parser setup. So it's checking the require and it's like, this is good. So it's a little bit too much. Like, I don't think it needs to, but it doesn't know what to check or what not to check in the code, I guess. I'm not sure. But this is the first I've seen a model do this, at least explicitly called out in the logging during the chat prompt interface here. And I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. I like that it's attempting to analyze the code that deeply. However, in the bad side of it, the con of it is it ate up the context window and therefore reached a limit. Holy cow. Like, look how much I'm scrolling here, right? On and on and on. It's doing each line inside of server.js. And I don't know if it would go to like every other file it had created. I got stuck at that point. So then I reached this message, sorry, the response hit the length limit. Please rephrase your prompt. So I tried again, and then it's just failing now. But at this point though, like, it was done with writing the app and building it out, and it was going through and analyzing the security of its own application that it wrote. So we'll go ahead and do that now. I'm gonna leave it as is, but imagine if there was more context available, it would finish going through each line, at least of server.js file, if not more, which is all in here. So here's the server.js file, but it also had a bunch of other files available that it wrote up for the application that we typically see, and it's following pretty standard conventions that you'll find in a Node.js application like this. So with that, what we're going to do is I'm going to get it up and running. We're going to see the output and the end result and see how well it functions, at least as a production ready application. And then we'll use Snyk to test the security of it. So be right back. All right, so here we have the app running on localhost 3000. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, 300%. We have a top navigation bar and then some blank bar here, which is kind of weird. I don't know why that's like that. Welcome to Secure Notes, a secure application for managing your notes. We have a home login and register. So I'll go ahead and register, say password, and I'll click register. Okay, now it's gonna make me log in even though I just registered. Okay, now I'm logged in. So that's all working successfully. We have my notes. We can go home, my notes. I don't know, what is this white bar? It's just this empty bar I decided to put in there design-wise. So design-wise, which is not typically what we evaluate this on, but some of the more recent models that came out prior to or around the same time that this Google Gemini 3 Pro came out are producing designs that are a little bit nicer looking, easier on the eyes. This is kind of plain and boring. That aside, let's try creating a new note. Say my first note, testing things out, right? And we're gonna click create on that. And there we go. We could see when it was created, the title of that note. Again, not really fancy. Let's see if we can edit it. My first note's with edit. Update that. That seems to be working good. We'll create another note. test 2, and then I want to see if I can delete that. That goes through successfully. So functionality wise, everything is working as expected. One last thing to try is logging out and logging back in again. Working good. So functionality, it's meeting the needs of the prompt that we gave it, the very limited vibe coded type of prompt that we gave it. It did a good job of implementing the functionality necessary for fulfilling the prompt. So now we get into testing the security of it. All right, we're back. We're testing out the security with the Snyk extension for Visual Studio Code, and we can run the scan against the open source security and the code security. Open source security is going to tell us the dependencies that it chose to use to rely on for this application, whether those have vulnerabilities in them. And then the code security is any vulnerabilities that are found within the code that Gemini 3 Pro wrote. So we see some issues in the dependencies. We have 2 medium level severities, ones that we've seen in the past that are continuously showing up with Node.js based applications. That is this cross-site scripting one that's introduced via the CSurf module, and then the missing release of resources after effective lifetime, which is introduced through the SQLite 3 dependency. Not a huge knock against Gemini 3 Pro, but something to keep in mind that all these models keep making that same mistake for some reason on those dependencies without looking for alternatives. Then when it comes to the code security, this is where things are a little bit more concerning in that we have 7 issues, one within the auth controller. Oh, okay. These are allocation of resources without limits, meaning like we're not necessarily having any code in here that does rate limiting to help us against any denial of service attacks. However, something that can be done about that is using some type of gateway or proxy that you would set up outside of the Node application and not necessarily write it directly in the code that you're writing. Same goes for the node controller vulnerabilities here. So in my opinion, this is not a huge issue. This is actually pretty good that it's only those vulnerabilities that are being called out. Allocation of resources, basically not having rate limiting, which is something that we can, like I said, address elsewhere outside around the application scope and not directly written in the code itself. So good that it's called out so that we're at least aware of it, but also good that it's not a huge issue. And Gemini 3 Pro did a good job, at least with the code that it chose to write for the application. So that said, in conclusion, I think Gemini 3 Pro did a very good job, and comparatively to recent models, it's on par with those at this point. The speed at which it's producing the results is pretty good. I've said it in the last video on Claude Opus 4.5 that that's one of the differentiators nowadays with the models is the speed at which it's producing the results so that you keep your development loop going faster and not distracted and losing context of things as you're waiting for a prompt to finish. And the efficiency it runs at in terms of using the context windows that you have available to you with those models. So in that case, maybe Gemini 3 Pro wasn't so good about using the context window efficiently since it was trying to analyze the code line by line just for one file, and that reached a limit on us to where I had to stop things. But in terms of what we typically test and look for with each of these models, production ready and fulfilling all the needs of the limited vibe coded prompt that we gave it, yeah, pretty good. And then security wise, pretty good as well. Like not any major huge issues that stand out to me. And we're seeing this continued trend in that way with the latest models. So positive stuff all around. I'm curious though, what are your thoughts? What's been your experience using Google's Gemini 3 Pro in your projects? Let me know in the comments below. But on that note, that does it for this video. If you got value out of it, be sure to like it down below and share with somebody who can put it to use. And if you made it this far, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. Thanks for watching and happy, safe coding, everyone.